My name is Miriam. I'm sitting on the porch of my house in Litchfield, a mug of chamomile tea going cold on the railing beside me. The sugar maple in the yard has turned a deep, impossible gold against the gray October sky. My cat, Charlie, is curled at my feet, one paw twitching in some dream he'll never share with me. It's moments like these that make me reflect on the journey that brought me here. 5 years ago, I woke up alone in a hospital room. The incision for my emergency heart surgery ran from just below my collarbone to the bottom of my sternum, held together by 18 staples. There were no flowers on the windowsill, no one holding my hand. Just a nurse named Lily sitting beside me, telling me that they'd called my family, but they said they couldn't come. I lay there, not crying, just thinking about whether they couldn't or wouldn't come. It all started long before that surgery. I was 28. Living alone in a small studio apartment in Providence, Rhode Island. It was on the 4th floor, and the building had no elevator. I could hear my neighbor's alarm clock through the thin walls, and the hot water always ran out by 7:30 a.m. I worked as a junior accountant at a local firm. The pay was enough to cover rent, groceries, the minimum on my student loans, and my monthly cardiac medication, but there was never anything left for savings. My family was a complicated mess. My sister, Isabella, was 2 years older than me. She was the golden child, the one who could do no wrong in my parents' eyes. My father, Henry, was a successful businessman, always focused on money and status. My mother, Victoria, was more passive, always going along with whatever my father and sister said. Every Sunday evening, I'd call my mother. It was a ritual, but it never lasted long. After a few minutes, I'd hear Isabella's voice in the background, laughing about something, and my mother would say, "I'll call you back, honey." She never did. I still sent birthday cards, texted my father on Father's Day, and asked about Thanksgiving plans, but the answers were always vague, followed by silence. I hadn't updated my emergency contact form at the doctor's office. It still listed my parents' home number, the same one from when I was 20. I kept meaning to change it, but I wasn't ready to admit that there was no one else to put down. Then there were the social media posts. Every time I'd open Instagram, there they were, my parents at fancy restaurants with Isabella and her husband, on family vacations, having a great time. I was never in the photos, never invited. One night, I scrolled back 3 years, through 3 Thanksgivings, 3 Christmases, and 3 birthdays. I wasn't in a single image. I remembered something my father said at the dinner table when I was 17. He put his fork down, looked at me, and said, "We've spent $150,000 on your heart so far. Your sister hasn't cost us a dime in medical bills. Think about that." I thought about it every day. Isabella was beautiful, confident, and charming. She could walk into a room and command everyone's attention. My parents paid for her to go to a prestigious private university in New York. They bought her a luxury apartment when she graduated and signed her first car, a sleek BMW. I, on the other hand, took out federal loans and went to a state school. I drove an old Toyota with a dented fender for years. But the money wasn't the worst part. The worst part was the pattern. Every time I had something to be proud of, like getting a raise or finishing a big project, Isabella would call my parents that same week with something even bigger, a promotion, a new vacation, a new boyfriend. And my news would just disappear. I texted my mother once after I passed my CPA exam. She replied 6 hours later, "That's nice, honey. Did you hear Isabella got engaged?" 2 exclamation marks for Isabella, 1 line for me. There was one person in the family who never forgot me, my Uncle Oscar, my father's younger brother. Every year on my birthday, he'd call at 7 p.m.
Sharp.
He'd say, "Happy birthday, kid. You doing okay?" We'd talk for about 15 minutes. It was more than anyone else in the family ever gave me, but I hadn't heard from him in years. My father said Oscar was dead to the family, and I was too afraid to ask why. The last time he called, he said, "Don't let them rewrite your story, kid."
I didn't understand it then.
It was a Tuesday evening in October when everything changed. I was at the grocery store, reaching for a carton of milk on the top shelf, when I felt a sharp pain. It was like a white, hot pressure behind my sternum, as if someone had stabbed me. My vision started to narrow, and the fluorescent lights above me blurred into one long streak. I heard the milk carton hit the floor before I realized I'd dropped it. Then my knees gave way, and a kind stranger called 911. The ambulance rushed me to Rhode Island Hospital. The ER doctor said I had an acute aortic dissection and needed emergency open heart surgery. It was a possible complication of my congenital bicuspid valve. They needed to operate immediately. Under emergency protocol, they didn't need anyone's signature to save my life, but if something went wrong, they'd need a family member or a healthcare proxy. A nurse leaned over me. Her scrubs were a soft green, and her voice was calm but urgent. "Is there anyone we should call?" I gave them my parents' home number. It was the only emergency contact I had. They called, and Isabella picked up. She was at my parents' house for dinner. I learned all this later. What she said was, "She's not our problem anymore. Please remove this number from her file." Then she hung up. I didn't know any of this when they wheeled me into the operating room. I didn't know it during the 6-hour surgery, and I didn't know it when the anesthesia wore off and I opened my eyes to a room full of machines and silence. I spent 2 weeks in the hospital. The first 3 days, I couldn't sit up without help. On day 5, a woman from the billing department came to my room. The total charges before insurance were over $200,000. My employer-sponsored plan covered a portion, but the copay and deductible alone came to about $40,000. I didn't have that kind of money. On day 9, my supervisor emailed me. The subject line was restructuring update. The email was polite but empty. Due to my extended leave, my position would be re-evaluated, and there were no guarantees when I returned. I was lying in a hospital bed, hemorrhaging money I didn't have, about to lose my job, and not a single person from my family had called, texted, or visited. That night, I couldn't sleep. I picked up my phone and opened Instagram. Isabella's latest post was 3 days old, posted the weekend after my surgery. It was a photo of a family brunch at a fancy restaurant. My father was cutting into a steak, my mother was laughing, and Isabella was in the center, looking radiant. The caption read, "Living our best life." I scrolled to the comments. A friend of Isabella's had written, "Where's your sister?" Isabella's reply was, "Oh, she's doing her own thing. You know how she is."
Her own thing.
I was in a hospital bed, learning to breathe without a machine. They discharged me on a Thursday, 3 weeks after I'd collapsed in the grocery store. I took a cab home because there was no one to drive me. The driver helped me with my bag. He was gentler with me than my own father had been in years. My studio was on the 4th floor, no elevator. I made it up the stairs in 5 stops, gripping the railing with both hands, my chest burning with every breath. By the time I reached my door, I was drenched in sweat and shaking. Inside, everything was exactly as I'd left it. A half-drunk cup of coffee in the sink, a jacket on the back of the chair. A life that no one had checked on. Over the next week, the mail arrived like a series of bad news. A payment plan from the hospital, a severance letter from my company, and a notice from my landlord that my rent was increasing by $250 a month. I sat at my kitchen table and stared at the stack of letters. Then I picked up my phone and called my father one more time. He answered. "Miriam," he said. "Dad, I had heart surgery."
"I almost died," I said.
There was a pause. Isabella mentioned something. "Are you calling to ask for money?" "I'm calling because I almost died and nobody came," I said. 5 seconds of silence. "We all have our own problems, Miriam." "You're an adult," he said, and then he hung up. I sat on the kitchen floor with my back against the refrigerator. I pressed my palms flat on the cold tile. And for the first time since the surgery, I cried. Not because of the pain, not because of the bills, but because I finally stopped pretending. They didn't come because they chose not to. Then the doorbell rang. I wasn't expecting anyone. I looked through the peephole. A man stood in the hallway, in his mid-50s, with silver hair at the temples and a warm brown tweed jacket. I didn't recognize him at first. Then I saw his eyes. They were just like my father's, but warmer. It was a Tuesday, 6 days after I came home from the hospital. I opened the door. The man smiled. "Miriam," he said. "It's been a long time." His voice unlocked something in my memory. Birthday calls. 7 p.m.
M.
Happy birthday, kid. Uncle Oscar?
I said.
He nodded. Can I come in? We sat at my kitchen table, where the hospital bills and severance letters still sat in a pile.
He didn't look at them.
He looked at me, at the way I held my mug with both hands because my left hand still trembled from the medication, at the way I sat hunched forward because sitting straight pulled on the staples.
A nurse I know called me, he said.
She told me what happened. She told me no one came. Lily. The photo on her lanyard, a man with silver hair in front of an old farmhouse. That was Oscar. Oscar didn't rant about my father. He didn't curse Isabella's name. He just sat across from me in that small kitchen and said quietly, I know what it's like. Your dad did the same thing to me 16 years ago. I had to ask, why did he cut you off? I went bankrupt, Oscar said. Lost everything. My business, my house, my wife. Your father told the whole family I was a deadbeat and embarrassment. Your mother went along with it. I haven't been inside their house since. I stared at the table. The pattern was the same.
Fail.
Become expensive.
Get erased.
Oscar placed his hand flat on the table. I didn't come to talk about the past, Miriam. I came because I have something for you. My pulse quickened. What? He shook his head. Not today. You need to rest first. I'll come back Thursday. Thursday? Thursday, he said, and he left. I stood at the window and watched him walk to his old truck. It was clean but worn. He didn't look back, but he'd come. He was the only one who came. 3 days later, I got a text from a college friend named Ava. Hey, are you okay? I saw Isabella's post. I opened Facebook. I hadn't checked Isabella's page since the hospital. What I found made my hands go still. It was a long post, set to public, 3 paragraphs, written in the careful, trembling voice of a concerned older sister. It breaks my heart to share this, but my little sister has been struggling with some personal issues and has chosen to distance herself from our family. We've tried everything, called, texted, invited her to holidays. She refuses. Please keep her in your prayers. Mental health is no joke. There were 230 likes and 90 comments. I read them one by one. You're such a good sister. Some people just push away the ones who love them. Praying for your family, Isabella. Every comment was like a knife in my heart. Isabella had rewritten the entire story. In her version, she was the grieving sister, and I was the troubled runaway who rejected a loving family. I wanted to type the truth in the comment section, to post the hospital bill, the unanswered texts, the screenshot of her brunch selfie.
But I stopped.
Because if I fought back publicly, I'd look exactly the way she described me, dramatic, unstable, desperate for attention. So I did the only thing I could. I took screenshots. Every comment, every reply, the post itself, the date, the timestamp.
I didn't know why. Call it instinct.
Call it survival. Then I saw my mother's comment at the bottom. We love you no matter what, Isabella. You've always been the strong one. The strong one, which made me the weak one publicly, permanently. That night, I couldn't sleep. I sat in bed with my laptop and started going through everything, emails, texts, calendar entries, 3 years of communication with my family laid out in a timeline. And the pattern was so clear, I couldn't believe I'd missed it. 3 Thanksgivings ago, I emailed my mother asking about dinner plans. She replied, Isabella said you had plans already. I never said that. 2 Christmases ago, I called my father to wish him Merry Christmas. He said, Isabella told us you didn't want gifts this year. I had already mailed a package to their house. No one ever mentioned receiving it. 1 year ago, I sent my parents an email invitation to a small ceremony at the accounting firm. I'd earned my CPA certification. Nobody came. When I asked my mother, she said, We never got an invitation, honey. I checked my sent folder. The email was there. Delivery confirmed. 3 holidays, 3 lies, all filtered through Isabella. She hadn't just ignored me during surgery. She'd been erasing me for years. The surgery was simply the first time the consequences were visible. I closed my laptop and sat in the dark. And I remembered something. The last birthday call from Uncle Oscar years ago. His voice, steady and warm. Don't let them rewrite your story, kid. He'd known. Even then, he'd known. I just hadn't been ready to hear it. I called Isabella the next morning. She picked up on the fourth ring. Miriam, what a surprise, she said. I saw your Facebook post, I said. Which one? The one where you told everyone I pushed the family away. There was a beat of silence, then lightly. Well, didn't you? I was in surgery, Isabella. You told the hospital I wasn't your problem. Her voice shifted, lower, controlled. I don't remember saying that. The hospital has a record of the call. 3 seconds of nothing. I could hear her breathing. You're being dramatic as usual, she said. Take the post down. Or what? A soft laugh, the kind that's meant to make you feel small. You'll cry about it online? Nobody's going to believe you over me, Miriam. They never have.
Click.
I put the phone on the table. My hands were shaking. Not from the medication this time, from something hotter, something I hadn't let myself feel in years. Anger. Clean, clear anger. I picked up my phone again, opened the Notes app, and typed the date, the time, every word she'd said as close to exact as my memory could manage. Then I went back to the screenshots from her Facebook post. I organized them in a folder, added the emails, the unanswered texts, the calendar entries. I wasn't building a case. I didn't have a plan. I was just doing what every person does when they've been gaslit for a decade. I was making sure I couldn't be made to doubt myself again. 2 days passed, then Thursday came. The doorbell rang at exactly 10 a.m. Uncle Oscar, right on time, and this time he was carrying a thick manila envelope under his arm. Oscar sat across from me again. Same chair, same calm. But this time, the manila envelope lay between us on the table like a third person in the room. He didn't open it right away. Instead, he talked. After your dad cut me off, he said, I lost everything: business, house, marriage. I was living in a motel off Route 9 for 5 months. Then I found a house, a little place up in Litchfield. It was falling apart, the roof was leaking, the porch was rotting, and the pipes were frozen half the year. I bought it for almost nothing, fixed it myself. It took me 9 months. Then I sold it for 3 times what I paid. He leaned back. Then I did it again. And again. 10 years later, I owned several properties. No partners, no investors. Just me, a truck, and a whole lot of stubbornness. I watched his hands as he spoke. Rough hands, working hands, the opposite of my father's. I never had kids, he said. And I watched your dad raise you too. From a distance, but I watched.
I saw what he did to you, Miriam.
Same thing he did to me. If you cost him something, you were the problem. He slid the envelope across the table and opened the flap. The first thing he pulled out was small, silver, worn smooth at the edges, a key. This is the key to a house, he said. A real house in Litchfield. 3 bedrooms, a porch, half an acre of yard. It's yours. I stared at it. What do you mean it's mine? I bought it 7 years ago. Fixed it up myself. I put your name on the deed the day you turned.